Hey up guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Ricky. I've been a guitar teacher for about 30 years. I'm going to talk to you about suspended chords, or sus chords as they're known. So I really want you to understand how sus chords work and how they work on guitar specifically. So without further ado, I've got my pen, I've got some paper. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of that now. Okay, so you can see I've written down some numbers here. These numbers relate to the C major scale. If you don't know what these numbers mean, refer to this video up here in the card. So we have the root, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh. These are the intervals, and we can add that eighth there for the octave just for the completion of it. These are the first 8 intervals that we get in the C major scale. Now remember, the C major scale provides us with the ingredients that we need to make the chord. So here we have the simple octave. So let's start with this. We get C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So we have the C major scale there as a simple octave. Now the first thing we need is to make a C chord is we need the root, we jump over, we gather the third, and then we jump over and we gather the fifth. And if you remember, the root note is the home note. That's the sound of resolve. All the notes want to resolve down to that note. If we think of the third, we can think of that as the mood notes. That's whether a chord is happy or sad. And if we look at that fifth, it is transparent. This is called the triad. And the reason it's triad is because it's got 3 notes. Think of the word suspension. The way I imagine the suspension is, if you know these old cop shows where the cop gets suspended, you know that if he solves the case, he's coming back. So the suspension is the third. If we think of that third as being the cop character of this chord, then what we can do is we can swap it out temporarily for the sound of another note. And you can see that what we're going to do essentially is we're going to use the neighbor notes, and you can see there we could either suspend that E down to the second, and that would give us a sus2 suspended second, or we can suspend that third in favor of the fourth, which is this F here. We can express that in numbers. Remember, the triad is the root, the third, and the fifth. That's how we understand the major triad. If it was a minor triad, it would be a root, a flat third, and a fifth. Something that I really want to interject in here is that suspensions work and happen on major and minor triads. Okay, back to it. So, like I say, major triad, and then we get a minor triad here. So if I want this sus2 chord, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to suspend that third in favor of the second here. So the formula of the chord becomes root, second, and fifth. Now because the third has been taken away, we don't have any major or minor tonality to cling to. And this is what it is that's amazing about suspended chords. It leaves you hanging. This is the quality of sus chords. They leave you wondering where the sound is going to go to next. There's the formula for the sus2 chord. The sus4 chord, so we start with the root, we're suspending that third in favor of the fourth here, which happens to be that F, and that means we get a root, a fourth, and a fifth. And again, here's the thing with this. There is no third present. That's really important for next week's lesson that we're going to get into with talking about add chords. No third present because it's been suspended. It's on suspension. Now that we understand the intervals and the numbers, then essentially what we need to do is translate that over into guitar chords and guitar shapes. So I'm going to use a C major chord to demonstrate suspensions on a major triad, and I'm going to use an A minor chord to show suspensions on a minor triad. So here we have the C major chord, and you can see that the intervals that I've placed on there on the E, A, D, G, B and E string are all there. You can see that we've got a root, a third, a fifth, a root, and important to note in the C shape that we get a doubled third. What we're going to do for ease of understanding this exercise today is we're going to get rid of that E string. So we're not including this E string. If you want to iron this out, well then what you could do is add another G note here on the 3rd fret by adding another 5th there, and that would iron that out, which means that we get rid of that 3rd. The first thing we need to look at is if we look at the formula for a Sus2 chord. The Sus2 we can see has a root, a 2nd and a 5th. A root, a 2nd and a 5th. And this in this example we get a C, the D is the 2nd and the G is the 5th. If we look at the C chord here, we can see that essentially to add that Sus2, all we need to do is play an open D string, and that would give us our Sus2. That sounds fantastic. If you take that finger off there, ring the open string, then you can see that that's going to give you that Sus2 sound. On the other side, if we look at a Sus4, we get a root, a 4th and a 5th, and that gives us a C, an F, and we get a G. If you use my bead method to go across the strings, you could go goes Charles as father, G, C, F. You know that the F is going to be at the 3rd fret of the D string, and that is going to give us our Sus4. You could, if you want to think about it, you could essentially take that Sus4 and actually do the same treatment over here. You could take that 4th there and raise that, but obviously you can see because this is an open string, there is no way you are going to get that note to go back a tone. You're not going to get that to go back in pitch at all because it's an open string. It terminates as a 3rd there. Interesting to note, we can also get another 2nd by coming up here. We end up with another Sus2 there. The next chord I'm going to look at is the A minor. We've got the 5th, the root, and the flat 3rd. Hopefully, guys, you know from my thing that I do about 5R3. This is very, very useful to help you to understand which notes are which. 1, 2, 3 there. Okay, so we have an A minor chord. If we swing to either side with those suspensions, you can see that we get a Sus2 and a Sus4 there by applying those rules. Sus2. Well, remember the Sus2 is a root, a 2nd, and it is a 5th. And if we apply that to these note names, we get an A, we get a B, and we get an E. Now, how are we going to rid the chord of that C? Because remember, the C is here. It's on this string here. Then what we have to do is just play the open string. That gets us to our Sus. There's the Sus2. Now, the cool thing about this A minor chord is that it's not like the C that has 2/3. This doesn't. It only has 1/3, which makes it easier to work this out. This shape is a lot easier to work out sus chords. The G and the C shape both have 2/3, so they make it a little bit tricky. But like I say, refer to the PDF in the description there if you want to see all those shapes and how they work. Now, to get a sus4, we need a root, a 4th, and a 5th. And in this instance, that's going to be an A, it's going to be a D, and it's going to be an E. If you think about it, it's all about manipulating the 3rd. It generally happens on the string that has the 3rd. So if we take that there with a flat 3rd and we go up to the D, which is here on the 3rd fret of that B string, that's where we find the sus4. So what we can do is we can turn an A minor chord into a sus4. Okay guys, so what the hell do those chords sound like? And what does it look like in practice on the guitar itself? So you can see here is a C chord. And like I say, in this C shape, we might want to eliminate that, but how we can eliminate that E string is by putting that pinky on there. That's still just a plain old C major chord. But for today's purposes, what we're going to do is I'm just going to eliminate that thin E string completely. And you can hear there we get the C major chord. Now to turn that into a C sus2, this finger is on the 3rd. And by taking that finger off, I release the chord to the open D string. And that becomes a C sus2 sound. What we can do is we can change that by adding the sus2 up here. Now remember, this is a C, so that's the root note, and if we move it up 2 frets, we get the second note. So root, second. It makes sense. So root, second. If I put my pinky on there, then I play that, then I could get the sus2 chord, but first things first, I need to suspend this third here. So this ends up becoming almost like a double suspended chord. That's a C sus2 also. Can you hear when I play the triad, it feels like it's gone home? We can get a C sus2 by rolling the second finger over and muting out the D string. And we can even add that fifth there to get a C sus2. Check out that diagram in the PDF. That is a C chord. It's a C shape. It's all devolved from here. So here's a C, C sus2, C sus2, doubled second. Or if I want to play it like this with the added fifth here, C sus2. Still a C sus2. Now to make the C sus4, what we do is we take that third and we raise it up to the fourth there. That gives me this sound. And you can hear that wants to go back down to the triad. That's the easiest way to play that C sus4. There, I was playing around with the sus2 and the sus4, because what we essentially get is voice leading on the D string. We just, by moving those there, keeping the fingers static on these root notes here. It can add a lot of variety to a basic chord. The next chord is this A minor. And the thing to remember with an A shape is that it is a 5/3 shape. We get the fifth, the root, and under that first finger is the minor third. That's the sad colour note. Now if we take that finger off, we get the A sus2. If I put my pinky on here, I get the sus4. Here's the A minor. In next week's lesson, I am going to be getting into the compound octave and what the difference is between a sus chord and an add chord. Be there. Subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss when I go live or I drop a lesson. And also guys, please make sure you comment below if you've got some use from this and you got some value. Make sure you hit the like button and I will see you next time. Take care, stay safe.